Hello, good evening, happy Monday. Hope you all had a great weekend. And I'm just getting my notes pulled up here. Give everybody a couple minutes to see if we have anyone join live tonight. For those of you who do not know me, my name is Jessie Sletton and I am a postpartum empowerment coach. I help moms exchange surviving for thriving through holistic recovery plans focused on healing, nourishing, and bonding in the postpartum timeframe. And I am also a certified lactation counselor. And on Mondays, I follow that passion and try to bring you some education, some support around the lactation process that is based in evidence. That is a very important thing for me. I am an advocate for providing evidence-based information to lactating individuals to ensure that you have the information that you need, that you can trust to have a successful and supported lactation journey, should that be what you choose to do for your infant feeding goals. I come here live in the group every Monday with what I call Milky Mama Mondays to present this information to you all. And recently I took the perinatal mental health certification exam, and during that training, it was a very intense 3-day training, literally all day, that I learned so much information about perinatal mental anxiety disorders and so much more during the perinatal time frame as it pertains to mental health. And one piece of that training that I found very fascinating was all about tonight's topic. And that topic is D-MER, or that's the acronym for what we are speaking about tonight. And the full name for this disorder, it's not an actual diagnosable disorder, so I should clarify that language. It's actually more of a physiological response or reflex that they are seeing consistently anecdotally, as well as some research that is coming out about this that we are seeing on a more larger scale versus just the case studies that we have had so far, to show that this reflex is real. And back to what it is actually called, D-MER is short for Dysphoric Milk Ejection Reflex. D-MER is how you will see it. And this is a really interesting and fascinating reflex that I wanted to bring some information to light for you all in this group. As a disclaimer, I am not a medical professional, so please do not take this as any type of medical direction or diagnosis or any of those things. This is purely to provide you education, and as a springboard, if this is something that you might have some questions or concerns about, we're going to talk about what you can do at the end of this training as far as pursuing getting support with the possibility of having this reflex condition, if that's something you are concerned about. All right, doesn't look like I have anybody on here live, which is totally fine. I will be posting this in the group for the recording for those who would like to catch this on the replay. If you are catching it after the fact, please let me know, #replay. Let me know what you learn or what you found interesting, or if you have any other questions regarding D-MER after you watch the training tonight. All right, I am going to go ahead and dive in. So let me pull up my notes here. I want to make sure I have everything in front of me before we start talking. If anybody does join live, say hello. Let me know you're here. And I will be monitoring the comments in case any questions do come up during the actual training. All right, let's dive in. We're going to be covering 3 main pieces during this training. There's a ton of information, and I am going to link reputable sources underneath this video if you would like to learn more about this condition and to see some of the emerging research that's coming out, as well as read up on the history of how this was actually identified. Has a very fascinating, what could you say, kind of like a beginning of its actual my brain is not working right now on how it was actually identified at the beginning in 2007, I believe it was. This condition had not been discussed as a formal condition up until that point, and it was actually discovered by a international board certified lactation consultant who was experiencing D-MER herself in her lactation journey. So this became a passion of hers, and she actually is the one who runs the website that I will be sharing with you all in the comments. And she's just a wealth of knowledge. Her website is amazing. It has a ton of information on there. She also has written a book. Her name is Elisa. Sorry, I want to make sure I pronounce it right. Aaliyah Macrina Hesse, I believe is how you say her name, and I'm so sorry if I butchered that, but I will have her linked information down below for you to look more into that. So let's talk about what D-MER is and what it is not, because it's really important to understand the difference between this condition and some other things that it might sound similar to, or that might get misdiagnosed. So I want to make sure we cover that. So D-MER is a condition, as I said, that affects lactating individuals, and it is characterized by an abrupt dysphoria or a negative emotion that occurs just before the milk is released, and it continues for only up to a couple of minutes, from 30 seconds to a couple of minutes, and then it disappears. Okay, so that is a very important distinction. It is very short term during the nursing session. Okay, so it is a reflex, as I have stated before, which is important because that shows us that it is controlled by our hormones, and it is not controlled by the lactating parent's thoughts. They have no control over that piece. Okay, so they cannot talk themselves out of that feeling. They can't prevent themselves from feeling that way in the moment. Okay, so that's really important because that is pointing to it that is a physiological response and not a psychological response to the milk release. Okay, so that's really important because that's what distinguishes it between being a condition, a reflex that is physiologically driven versus a psychological disorder. All right, so it is not postpartum depression. It is not postpartum anxiety. Okay, it is not a diagnosable perinatal mental mood disorder. Okay, so that's very important. So it's also important to know that D-MER is not a somatic feeling in and of itself in isolation. Okay, many women describe a physical feeling in their abdomen area. So, things that are around their stomach, a pit in their stomach, an empty feeling that is somatic, but it's very important that it has to be tied to those emotional components. Okay, it is crucial for being able to qualify as D-MER and not just something else. So it is not just nausea on its own during the milk release. Okay, it's not just a physical symptom. It has to be paired with the emotional side of things as well. Okay, so that's really important to understand as well. I also want to point out that D-MER is not just an overarching dislike of nursing. Often women who report D-MER, an experience of D-MER, they often report enjoying breastfeeding or chest feeding overall, outside of those moments of the D-MER experience. Okay, those very isolated moments, they obviously are reporting very negative emotions, but overall, a lot of times they are reporting the fact that they are enjoying their lactation journey. So that's another thing to keep in mind as well. Now we are going to move on next to the intensities and spectrums of D-MER. And one of the intensities is severe, and I will say that that intensity is more often tied to weaning and discontinuing of breastfeeding due to the intensity of the emotions that these women are feeling and lactating individuals. Okay, so that can happen in the more severe cases, but overall, it is not just an isolation or a feeling of I just don't like to breastfeed. Okay, that does not mean that somebody who does not enjoy breastfeeding, does not like it, does not want to pursue it, does not automatically mean that they are experiencing D-MER. Okay, so I just wanted to clarify that. All right, so let's move on to talk about the intensity and spectrums. So there are 3 intensities and 3 spectrums of D-MER, okay? And these can kind of mix and match. They don't have to just be like, spectrum 1 is only ever mild. They can be all within, the different intensities can be all within the different spectrums, okay? So for the intensities, it's mild, moderate, and severe. And mild is usually just kind of described as a sigh or a pang, within the first few minutes right before the milk reflex ejection happens, okay? It's usually something that isn't even sought, the women don't, or the lactating individuals don't seek treatment for because it is so mild. They're usually able to explain it away almost after experiencing it, okay? And it's usually rated very low on a scale of 1 to 10 with the intensity feelings that these women have. And for the moderate, this is a little bit of a more obviously moderate intensity feeling of these negative emotions. And they usually rate a little bit higher on the scale of 1 to 10. Usually mild is 1 to 3, and moderate is usually 3 to 7. And usually when these lactating individuals are educated on what D-MER is, they usually report a lowering of their intensity levels simply by learning about what D-MER is so that they can understand what is happening to them and that it is not something wrong with their mental state or themselves. It is actually a physiological response that is occurring within their body. And then, of course, the severe is going to be a very high intensity emotion that this individual is experiencing. And this is usually rated very high, 7 to 10 on the scale. And usually, the more severe cases are the women or lactating individuals that are actually seeking treatment because it is that disruptive to their lactating journey. Okay, so those are the 3 different intensities. And then the 3 spectrums of D-MER that we see are spectrum 1, which is despondent, spectrum 2, which is more anxiety, and spectrum 3 is agitation. Okay, so within all of these, you can have the different intensities, like I said. Mild is usually more associated with the despondent spectrum, which is kind of interesting, but they can be within all 3 spectrums. So just really quickly, I'll give you a little bit more information on each of these spectrums so that you have that. And really, it's just what makes the spectrum different is the actual feelings that these individuals happen to experience during their D-MER event. So despondent is usually more of just a simple unhappy. They might be more weepy. They just feel yucky when they experience the D-MER. They may just have a lower mood. They feel despair sometimes, disheartened. I'm just reading a list of these feelings. That there's a whole list of these. They can have guilt. They might feel gross. They might have a feeling of failure, like they're alone or depressed. they're concerned, or they're apprehensive, or just general negative moods. Okay, so that's the despondent spectrum. Spectrum 2 is the anxiety feelings. Of course, feelings of anxiety or anxious feelings. They might be annoyed. They might feel a dread or a frustration, even some panic or irritability, and sometimes restlessness or resentfulness about in the moment. And so the difference between that and agitation is really like anger with the agitation spectrum. They get very hostile. They can feel very, even paranoid in the moment, very distressed, aggressive, all these kind of things. Okay, so those are the three different spectrums. And really, like I said, those are just differentiated by the feelings that these lactating individuals experience during their D-MER event. So now that we've covered that, I want to mention that as far as the intensities of D-MER goes, mild is often self-corrected in a much shorter time frame. So we are seeing some evidence of self-correction with D-MER. In that, with the mild cases, usually self-correct within the first 3 months. And then the moderate usually self-correct, if they do, within the 9 months of their nursing journey. And then the severe sometimes does not correct at all, or not until after the first year of nursing. So that in and of itself is one of the criterias of defining the intensity of the D-MER condition that they are experiencing. So just an interesting side note. So what can lactating individuals who think that they might be experiencing D-MER, what can they do about it? Who should they speak to? This is the important thing that I wanted to discuss. So, of course, if you are worried or experiencing any of these things, you want to speak to your healthcare provider, okay? Another really great resource is a lactation consultant who is educated on the D-MER condition, okay? This is simply not for a diagnosis, but more for support and education on what could be going on and how you can kind of cope or work through those things. Another great resource is a perinatal mental health therapist. This is not a mental health disorder. I really, really want to emphasize that. However, if this is something that is affecting your mental health in the long run due to these feelings, that is a very, very valid source and resource for you to seek help from, okay? And below this video, in addition to the D-MER website that I will provide, I will also provide the link to Postpartum Support International. I speak about this a lot. It is actually where I got my certification, my perinatal mental health certification from. They have a wealth of resources when it comes to perinatal mental health support, support groups, and so much more. And they actually have a what do they call it? A provider directory on there as well. And you can look up therapists, medical providers, psychiatrists, lactation consultants, so many different professionals that are in the realm of perinatal support that have actually gone through their training and their certification program. So it's another really great resource. It is on the resource sheet, the PDF file that I have uploaded in the documents section of this group as well, but I'll drop it below here too for you all. So long story short, you don't have to struggle with this alone. And I wanted to talk about this in this group because as you can see from what I've shared, a lot of the power of being able to cope with this condition is just knowing about it. So simply bringing light to this condition, talking about it, educating on it can have a very powerful impact on people who are experiencing D-MER during their lactation journey. So if this is something that you want to discuss further, if you do think that you are struggling with this, like I mentioned, please feel free to reach out to your medical provider, as well as you are more than welcome to schedule a lactation consultation with me as well. I'm happy to support you. We can create a plan for your lactation journey so that you don't feel like it has to discontinue if you are experiencing any sort of D-MER event or condition during your lactation or nursing sessions. Okay, so I am here for you as always, and I offer one-on-one coaching services that are a more holistic approach to postpartum and preparing for postpartum and pregnancy, or already in postpartum, and as well as I offer separate lactation consulting support as well, if that's something you're interested in receiving on its own. So I will drop both of those links below so that you can schedule some time with me if that's something that you are interested in speaking about, so that we can get you the support that you need so that you can continue on with your breastfeeding or chest feeding journey if that is something that you wish to do. All right, everybody. So I hope that that was informative for you. I hope you have learned something. Go out, share this information with others if you feel that you know other lactating women or breastfeeding moms who might be struggling with this. Like I said, so much power is in just the knowledge of what D-MER is. And so talk about it with your mom friends. Share about it. The more we talk about these more taboo feelings that we might be worried about or harboring inside that we don't want to talk about because we might have a little bit of shame or misunderstanding about what's going on with us, the more that we can get the support we need and help and to reach others that might be going through the same experience. So I hope you all have a great rest of your week. I will see you live again on Friday for our free coaching Fridays, and I will see you in the group outside of all of that. If you need any other support, feel free. Please post in the group. Let me know what you need from me, what you need from our community. We are here to support you, and I will talk to you all very soon. Have a great night.